first of all, I would like to thank and congratulate Peninsula Foundation for organizing this conference on such an excellent topic. So thank you. I will be speaking regarding small island states. And as you know, small island developing states, there's such an organization called the Small Island Developing States, SIDS, that to which Maldives belongs. So let me show you a little map so that you have an idea of what this is about.
Yes, you can see that.
Also, here we are. And talk about tourism, of course. Since it's 12 minutes, I have to go fast. This is just to give you an idea of where the clusters, the SIDS are clustered. Of course, you cannot read each island separately, but if you see the cluster, where's the pointer? I think it's not.
Is the pointer working?
It's the pointer. But I'm losing. No, it's not the point. Anyway, on the right, it is the Pacific, the cluster of islands in the Pacific, SIDS. And then you see in the Indian Ocean in the center, that's the cluster of islands in the Indian Ocean. Then you see a couple of isolated SIDS islands in the Atlantic. Then, of course, the next cluster on your left is the Caribbean. So basically, that's where the cluster of SIDS are. And the idea is just to show you again, you know, where they are scattered around. Now, generally speaking, the climate change has very in some cases, tangible effects that you can see the impacts, but in other cases, you cannot see the impacts. I will talk about that later. SIDS is a large group, all of them together, the total 65 million people, the population, which means SIDS islands, along with the regional groupings that belong to SIDS. And I like to note here the types of climate hazards that SIDS have mostly, and I will take specific examples of hurricanes named Maria, which was actually first Irma, which had attacked what used to be called Cape Verde, but now it's called Cabo Verde. And the reason for me to be mentioning just these particular ones is to show you that in 1 year, the damage that these hurricanes did. So it was Irma in Cape Verde, Cabo Verde, then Maria, which devastated the northern Caribbean, and then Hurricane Caribbean, particularly Dominica, a SIDS island, and St. Croix. And then Hurricane Nate in the Atlantic affecting SIDS, such as many other islands. So all these together in 2017, the deadliest of all of them, they were deadly and most devastating of all times by destroying communication, energy, and transport infrastructure, homes, health, and schools. Now, out of the climate change phenomena, it's the slow onset events such as sea level rise, which you don't see, which you don't feel, that's the most disturbing, that will have in future the most impact on SIDS islands. Here I like to tell you a joke, which can you give me an extra minute for the joke? is when I was working for United Nations mission in peacekeeping mission in Liberia. And of course, we had many African colleagues. And what they had heard of the Maldives was that it was going to sink. You know, at that time, even now, the scientists believed that it would sink very quickly. I will come to the years later. So they had heard when at my farewell little get-together, gathering actually, formal gathering, they said, oh, we have to offer her a place to stay. And I'm jokingly, somebody else before that from Kenya, he had said, oh, Rasheeda, when your country sinks, you can come to my father's estate and we will give you a land. So anyway, later on at my farewell, I said just thankingly, well, of course it was all a joke. I said, well, some people have offered me a home. And then Sierra Leoneans, Gambians, my closest friends and colleagues, they said, oh, we'll offer you a job, a place to stay. We'll offer you home. And then the Sierra Leoneans, who had just come out of a long and disturbing civil war, they said, oh, we'll give you a place to stay as well. So I'm thinking, is life better in Sierra Leone or in the sinking Maldives? It's just an aside. Of course, now we need to look at the Maldives very quickly. In Sierra Leone, climate change is really the biggest environmental challenge that the Maldives has, and the Maldives will have possibly. It affects almost every aspect of the country because it affects the economy. I mean, we are highly dependent on tourism. So climate change will affect livelihoods, habitat, water, and many things. And I don't have time to go into the details of how it will. And then, of course, food security as well. Now, the seriousness of its effects is summarized in a statement by the foreign minister. This is not trying to be trying to get politics involved in this, but just this is a very good statement to let the world know of how the Maldives will suffer. He said, quote, climate change is destroying our tiny island country for years. It is eroding our beaches, killing the coral reefs, protecting our islands, contaminating our fresh water with seawater, and we are losing our fish stocks. But most importantly, climate change is going to take our home away from us seriously. So entirely. So this is a very good summarizing of what's happening in the country, what could happen in the country. Now let's look at the importance of, first of all, let me tell you that climate change, now hazards related to climate change, it is difficult to tell, okay, this hazard that has occurred is related to climate change. Sometimes it is difficult to tell which is which. And so for us to pinpoint that a certain hazard is related to climate change takes lots of many years of research and so on, which we have not been able to do as a country, or even internationally. I don't think they have done it. Now it is, but the thing is this, now it is commonly believed in the country by observation and by speaking to people, I know this, commonly believed that most definitely there are differences in the timing of the seasons, in the rainfall patterns. Sometimes it used to be during certain times like June, July, August, and now it may be October, November, and some other periods which normally didn't have rainfalls occurred, okay? And rainfall patterns, so. And also increase in beach erosion. People in the outer islands definitely see more beach erosion, and I will show you a picture of it later on so that you would know what we are talking about. And then, of course, the sea level rise, which we don't see, except that it is warming the sea and it is losing the reef, animals in the reef. Now, let's have a look at the yeah, let's have a look at the next picture. Now, tourism in the Maldives is the biggest occupation. It actually the tourism's contribution to economy is huge. Sometimes it is believed that it's about 40% of the economy, and so which is a large amount of revenue. And so if something happens to tourism, if something happens that will affect tourism, definitely the country is going to go downhill very, very quickly. Then I will look at the change demonstrated in 2020. This is also by people's observation. And they said, such as, for example, there's an island called Nadu in atoll called Gafdal Atoll, which doesn't make sense to you, but just know that an island. And another island called Difushi. They reported incidences of several flooding, which didn't occur before. So it was believed that this is due to climate change and not due to anything else. But then there are Maldivians who argue that, okay, this used to happen even before. So what's the big deal? What's this new thing called climate change and sea level rise and all that? They said it happened before. But the present people who are living now saying that it did not happen to that extent before. So therefore, there is something unseen that we don't know, which is causing certain climate happenings, climate effects. We have
another 3 minutes after catering for the joke.
Oh, the 10 minutes more. Already
3 minutes more
okay.
after catering for the joke.
Oh, please. All right, so we won't go into too much details of other things. Let's look at some of the pictures and the types of climate change that's happening. This is just tourism, yeah, just to show you why tourism is big in the Maldives. Okay, coral bleaching. Now, this is important to see because sea level rise affects coral bleaching. Bleaching means it's bleached, it's white, and it looks very pretty, especially if you're in the Maldives. If you see a bleached coral in the shops, you think, oh, beautiful, pretty, but it's dead. Now, sadly, it is dead, and I'll show you how a healthy coral looks like. So then you know. Now, this is the normal coral reef, and see how colorful they are. It's very extremely colorful and pretty, and then you can imagine all this going to be white later. And then again, another healthy coral, very, very colorful, extremely beautiful. And this is what the tourists come for, to see. Those who can snorkel, and anybody can snorkel because it's an easy thing. And so they come, they can see. One doesn't have to go diving into the deep sea to see that type of coral in the Maldives. So many of the tourists who come, they see that. That's why they, oh, finished? My time is over? Oh.
No, I didn't stop anything.
Something else happened. Okay, this is sea swells. Again, another hazard, small hazard, roughness in the sea, extreme roughness, and the boats can get lost, boats can submerge. So that's called sea swells. Tidal waves, huge big waves that land on the islands, that come from the sea and land on the islands, another hazard. Coastal flooding. Coastal flooding as opposed to rain flooding, which can cause in the middle of the island coming from rain. Coastal coming from the sea and making. The tsunami of 2004 was the biggest hazard in the Maldives. And since then, we haven't had that kind of hazard. And of course, devastation is there. Now, to mitigate that, to combat, some people try. Some individuals have tried, and some resorts, tourist resorts have tried. Now, this is an artificial coral reef. That structure put in there was done by a resort called Summer Island Resort. Actually, they won an award for this particular project. And what they do is install this in the sea, and then coral, little coral, baby coral are planted, and they're supposed to grow in time. And another place I have seen was in a place called Furadu Island, and what they did was, that's a much simpler, not a resort, individuals doing it, so they didn't have the money. Just a frame, metal frame, and they put in little baby corals, and they're supposed to grow. And when they grow, they will go, and I saw it myself, and when they grow, they will take them to the natural environment and plant them on a natural coral. So I think time is almost up. So just to say that the sea level rise, I will conclude by saying the sea level, right now, the impact of climate change is not felt immediately, because as we don't see, sea level rise is something we don't see. It can come, but any time it can affect us. So it's like a big monster hiding in the dark, lurking in the dark. So with that.